We get into that China crisis, boys. They come here.
By the way, this is not on the record. This is John Walters, who just walked in the studio, walked over to his microphone, and he's about to do some talking now.
Talk?
About the pop press.
I got to talk. Look, every week I come to talk, as you say, about the pop press. Talk. I come in, I turn over the pages. More and more, I think, is it me?
Don't you? Mean?
Do you know? I mean, you look at things and you see things in the pop press. You see, is it me? I don't know. You turn the page. Do you know what the NME's doing this week?
Tell me.
You know, like they did a week or two ago, they did look at it, including us. They did the media, you know, they looked at the media. Some of those things were very interesting. But this week, Sounds always does, like heavy metal and punk rock and all that sort of thing. Kerrang! They do nothing else, and that's their whole point, obviously. NME's decided to do a special heavy metal edition. It's all heavy metal. Interesting. There they go. I mean, better get into it. Let's just have a quick look at the sort of thing they're doing. Record reviews, articles, reviews, interviews, all this sort of stuff. I mean, come on. If they're going to do it, you know, let's not fool around here. And let's not fool around here. That's what Paolo Hewitt says right at the top of his article about heavy metal. He says, let's not fool around here. Let's not kid ourselves. He says, if you went searching for the one person, the one symbol who absolutely typified this musical monster, he means heavy metal. Oh, in fact, he says it. We know it's heavy metal. You would eventually have to end up face to face with Thor. Remember old Thor?
Your old pal?
My old pal Thor, something like ex-Mr. Universe or Cosmos or something. Great big muscular guy. Blows up a hot water bottle on stage. It's like a balloon and it bursts.
In his eyes.
Yeah, he wears goggles and the whole thing, and that's incredibly bends metal bars. Well, there you go. So Paolo Hewitt thinks that's what heavy metal's about. Ironically, as you turn your pages, you suddenly find Cynthia Rose is doing an album review. What's she reviewing? Thor. She says, Unchained. That's the title of the album. If this is Thor Unchained, Odin only knows what he was like cooped up. Despite titles like When Gods Collide, most of this junk sounds as if recorded whilst jogging. I wouldn't say that about Thor, would you?
No,
I know what he'd do. You and I wouldn't. No, because he'd come
he'd blow you up.
jogging round to your place, and he'll grab Cynthia Rose, and he'll say, are you Cynthia Rose? I am Thor. And he'll press his great muscular mouth to Cynthia Rose's little nose, but cheeks and lips and and Cynthia Rose will go out really big, and either he'll let her go and she'll go right round the enemy officers, or and that's the end of some very erudite reviews. She does some good to say, watch it, Cynthia. Don't say that, but then I don't know, that's the only exciting thing in the papers. You turn around, you think, is it me? Look, Melody Maker here. Smith's changed picture sleeve. And the single, What Difference Does It Make? Terence Stamp has objected that they used a still on the cover from a 60s film of his, The Collector. And he was unhappy and suggested the band might use a more up-to-date picture. What difference does it make? I mean, oh, come on. Dear me. Interviews, you turn to sounds. Hello, they're interviewing a band called 12th Night, who look a little bit like... There's one thing I hate more than old hippies, and they're not many things, it's young hippies. And if we're going to get a lot of that, I'm out of this business. I don't want all that bells and stuff again. But there you go, you see, there's a band here, 12th Night. Apparently they're known for some reason, which is quite witty. Somebody dubbed them the Punk Floyd, who is sort of post-hippies kind of thing. But, I mean, you know, exactly. You've been reading this, I heard that. Because this is what it says. They asked this guy, Andy Sears, they ask him questions, and he prints his answers. And it's spelt SNNESSSNNN SSENNYUK. Sort of... And all it says, try and get a nasal inhaler up his nose. Same as all the rest of us. But that's an interview now. Do we need to know?
Maybe.
You know what it was like when I started. The interviews used to be, why do they call you the quiet one in the group? What are they saying now? Smash Hits, they're talking to Paul Weller about the Style Council, the album and all that sort of thing. They ask him, are you gay? Who's going to ask him about it? And Paul says, am I gay? I say so, no. No, I don't think I am. He thinks about it. He says, not in the conventional sense. What do you mean by that? I mean, Paul Weller, I met Paul Weller, I've shaken him firmly by the hand. I wouldn't have done that if I had thought. What do you mean? No, but I mean, seriously, does he mean I am gay in the unconventional sense? Well, I mean, I don't mind coming out of the closet with everybody else. I'm gay in the unconventional sense. I mean, I've been married 17 years. I probably will find some little gay club to go for my 18th wedding anniversary and sit with the missus, and all the gays will say, how unconventional? Well, of course it is. I mean, what's he mean? It's all double negatives. We don't know what we're talking about. Record Mirror talk about this. This passes, when you say, is it me? Is it me? This passes as a competition. Photograph of Dolly Parton. You've got to guess who it is. She's wearing a false moustache.
Groucho Marx, glasses and moustache.
What sort of competition is that? Dolly Parton behind a false moustache? I mean, it'd be ages before you spotted the moustache, wouldn't it? Let's face it. You know, is it me? you see. Turn the pages, look, smash hits. They've got one of those where they ask a well-known personality, all that, you know, what have you got in your pockets? What was your first date? You know, quite amusing sometimes. And there's old Roger Taylor of Queen. Of course, I always get him mixed up with, you know, Roger Taylor of Duran Duran, the same as, yeah, exactly. And one of the questions is, do you ever get mistaken for Roger Taylor of Duran Duran? No, never. It is me. It is me. You know, and you think, oh, I don't know. Look at this. Here's a letter in Record Mirror. Somebody saw Gambaccini doing his Channel 4 thing, the other side of the tracks there, you know, with Depeche Mode. And it's about the video, and it showed one of them playing an instrument similar to an oboe. When Paul Gambaccini asked him about it, he said, it was an old instrument, but he'd now broken it. Firstly, this young lady says, I thought he must have been very careless with it, because apparently it's quite a valuable and rare instrument. But when I found out this wasn't the instrument played on the record, I was very annoyed. Miss Angry, as Steve Wright would say. Very, in big letters, very annoyed. As David Garn explained, it was used to make the video more interesting. I know, she says, Lucy, she says, I know. Depeche Mode are a nice bunch of lads, but when it comes to the stage of deceiving people to make you buy the record, and let's face it, videos do enough damage as it is, there is something drastically wrong. And then you get all these people saying, we want our music to be honest. It gets to be beyond a joke, she says, after a while. What's she talking about? Does she think people on videos are all playing the damned instruments? And when you see the Thompson twins and they go, bzzz, does you think all that noise is coming from that girl with the hat? You know what I mean? You think, is it me? You suddenly realise that sometimes people will believe anything. They will believe anything. Now, that's what worries me, because very often, when they're about things in the music press, you know, and this is what I'm thinking about this week in my look at the music press, because often there are things in this week's music press particularly that are about things I know about, and people I know. Yeah. And what worries me is that people will believe anything, and they'll believe what's in there, and it's often wrong, or wrong-ish. You know, a good story perhaps comes out, but it's wrong-ish. And when it is people, you know, you think, no, that's not right, you know, that's definitely not right. And here they're doing again in Sounds. They're looking at that other side of the tracks, Gambaccini's Channel 4 thing, and they say, poor Gambaccini has a virtual carte blanche. Oh, that's what it is. Virtual carte blanche. Oh, no, I must get a ride on that. On what he asks the guests, and apparently never has to resort to notes. Perhaps the overwhelming confidence shown in his abilities by Taylor, what's his name, and the executive producer, Michael Darlow, two extremely affable people, explained Gambaccini's condescending attitude to me when I spoke to the three of them. And you think, well, wait a minute. Now they ask him, when I asked him if there were going to be any surprises this time around, he looked startled and said, I do things which are obvious because they're good. And, you know, but you know what Gambaccini is, right? Yeah. He's not being condescending. No. I mean, only in the sense that he knows more about it than they do. He's forgotten more about it than they do. He doesn't know everything about everything. I know some of his strengths and weaknesses and so on. You know, he's hit conscious, American chart conscious and so on, but he does his own work. He knows what he's doing. He memorises it. It's amazing. You know, and there's a picture of Paul there. Gambo, condescending. Well, he isn't condescending. No. You know, he gets bored easily if you're not talking about the business. He'll, you know, go off and start to pick flowers or do something, whatever he does, you know, halfway through a story. But, you know, you think, I don't know. You look through the other papers and, I mean, there's one person, not a million miles away from this table.
Oh, yes.
Who was mentioned in Melody Maker's Talk, Talk, Talk.
Talk, talk, talk?
Talk, talk, talk.
What happened? What'd they say?
It was me! And they said I was magnificent. I am the magnificent.
What?
Exactly. Well, I saw a lot of slagging of you, and I thought, I turned the pages. And
how unsociable.
Only because I'd said some good things about them. They don't mind that. You know, I'd said talk. I'd read it and was amused last week and gave them some mentions. So they said, the magnificent John Walters gave us some mentions. Okay, we know that's a joke, so it doesn't make any difference. I am the magnificent. But then you turn the page and they're in Talk, Talk, Talk. They're looking at the Daily Mirror BBC Rock and Pop Awards, the thing we were at on Tuesday. Yeah. And you feel, well, I'm open for criticism. I don't mind people having a go. I like to read Julie Birchall. Whack, whack. You know, because usually she whacks people who, for some reason, that they deserve it. You know what I mean? But quite often, a lot of this isn't quite, you know, they just have whacking for whacking's sake. And in Talk, Talk, Talk here, they're saying, what exactly are these Rock and Pop Awards? Well, for those of you fortunate enough to have just recovered from a coma, thus escaping the bombardment of reminders on Radio 1 and Top of the Pops over the last couple of months, the Rock and Pop Awards, which they abbreviate to RAPA, which sounds quite good, is a tacky little mini Oscar ceremony for this country's musical fraternity. And on, and they go on about the coveted awards, in inverted commas, you know, and the Beeb sticks its oar into this money-making thing and all this on. But with customary disregard for the wishes of the licensees who pay their wages, the BBC hierarchy weren't about to allow us viewers too much of a say in the proceedings. The viewers had an entire say, really. I mean, if you wanted to vote, you could have voted. If you wanted to vote for the Smiths, if everybody had voted for the Smiths, they'd have won top group. As far as I know, I've never heard anybody say, oh, obviously it's bent, you know, because obviously if we'd have bent it, we'd have picked for a start a lot of winners who might have turned up. We'd have said who might turn up and then picked a winner out of those. Because obviously most of the winners were so successful they were out of the country. So, I mean, the viewers had their chance. And I do agree with Talk saying that a lot of trails, you know, you couldn't switch on Radio 1 without, or even look at the Daily Mirror, without people giving you little lists and little trails and say, who would you like to vote top male vocals? Anybody you like, but it could be, and then they put 3 or 4 people on, which I think isn't quite right, you know. But then, of course, they have a go at you. I don't know whether you've seen this. I see your little face lighting down. I've never seen a face light down before. I've seen a face light up. Well, they have a go at you, poor old kid, and this and that and the other, you know, and what do they say? Some sycophantic DJ. Well, what are you supposed to do, you know? And they go on about, for the first time ever this year, the Beeb was forced to admit its Canute-like influence over popular taste in finally conceding to the presentation of a video award. What do you mean, finally? As far as I know, it's never been suggested before. Suddenly, videos this year, we've got to admit, big business, people judge videos. They say, oh, the madness video's wonderful. Tracy Ullman always does good videos. And it is part of the business, isn't it now? So we join the business. We're supposed to be part of it. And they say now the fact that Paul McCartney won it for Pipes of Peace, the only video shown weekly on Top of the Pops, while other lesser mortals than Macca were forced to demean themselves by miming every fortnight. Well, if McCartney's not free, and there he is, you know, they've got a video, they've got to use it. Other people have videos played all the time. Tracy Ullman and so on. I've never noticed it live on Top of the Pops. I mean, you know, it's the business. The melody maker must know this. But they say that the onslaught of video, as if you hadn't noticed this, might well render the radio redundant and put Jensen and his cronies out of business. That's just nonsense within the foreseeable future, isn't it? I mean, it isn't. You're not going to be driving around the car, you know, halfway down the M1, let's have a look at the video. That's a good video, blimey. Yeah, I feel it's almost upside down. In fact, it's me that's upside down. You know, I mean, now, come on. I mean, OK, you know, you do think, is it me? They're getting it wrong. I turn to the other paper. Well, it sounds. There's a picture of you in Sounds.
Sounds?
Sounds there. Yes, Sounds. Yup, they say it's that time of year again when those oh-so-predictable pop personalities belch over a free dinner and graciously accept lumps of plastic in return. I had that dinner. I'd rather been given the lumps of plastic, frankly, and eaten the plastic than belched over that. I'd give Boy George my dinner any day of the week. No, it's all right, but I mean, it's only a bit of cold salad, so there's nothing special. I mean, what, you know, they don't know anything about it. What are they saying? You know, needless to say, the same old haggard face has popped up again and again. Oh. You know, I mean, what do they mean by this? It's just not, they've just not got it right. Boy George, they say, who after being cut off in his prime last year, made sure of having his bitchy remarks transmitted to an expectant audience by snatching away Kid Jensen's microphone and proceeding to slag off all and sundry. Not true. I was there. And I've looked at it back on the video. All he said, if you remember, he grabbed the mic from you and saying, as he would, you know, and said, here I am. And he says, well, at least I've turned up. Don't try and cut me off quick. You know, I've turned up and Duran haven't bothered. That's it. I mean, that was it. And then you had to shove him on, as you were saying on Tuesday, because of the time. And you think, well, there's obviously things to be said and criticised about the nature of the beast, but get it right if you're going to do it. You turn to smash hits here. George did his best to play up to his outstanding musical personality award by snatching that mic off David Jensen and generally being rather outspoken. I never heard him. Was he outspoken to you?
No, not even on the radio show afterwards.
No, I know. Amazing. And then they put at the bottom here, they did, however, get Best Single, that's Culture Club, of course, for Karma Chameleon. As to quite what Marjorie Proops was doing there, see picture below. Picture below, Boy George and Marjorie Proops. They say, that remains anyone's guess. What do they mean? I mean, it was at the next table to me. Marjorie Proops works for the Daily Mirror. She's invited, as were many other people from the Daily Mirror. So Boy George, and she said, oh, could I have a photograph for, I don't know, some relation or something? Well, she's as much right to be there as he is, so what do they mean? Well, anyone's guess. Nobody's guess. You know what I mean? Now, I don't mind criticism. I don't mind people criticising me, I don't mind criticising Radio 1, because I think if you set yourself up, you've got to be available for it, you know, I mean, be fair. And if anybody heard me at some of the Radio 1 departmental meetings over the years, I've handed out more criticism to Radio 1 than the Melody Maker or the NME combined. I mean, we don't mind some people within Radio 1. The other week when I was doing the NME media coverage was saying, don't know whether you should have done that, drew attention to the fact that the NME was criticising the BBC. The BBC isn't big enough to take that. It's amazing. You know what I mean? It's absolutely ridiculous. If we can't take that, good heavens. And here's a letter, turning almost to the end, I'm turning into NME, there's a letter from Robin Katz, who's a journalist who's...
I know Robin, yeah.
Yeah, I've known her for some years. I haven't seen her for a year or two. Well, I did have this school last year, but that's not in there. But she's written about the slagging off of Radio 1. And she said, according to Susan Williams, that was the person who supposedly wrote it, Steve Wright of Radio 1 is not good radio. According to Paolo Hewitt, Tony Blackburn of Radio London is good radio. These days he's an underdog. Then in brackets, does Mr. Hewitt know why he was tossed off Radio 1? Blackburn's not been thrown off Radio 1, has he?
He's still on.
Still on. I saw him in the club last night. I had a drink with him. You know what I mean? It's not true. I don't mind that. Be constructive. Let's have the criticism. I'll take it, but it's got to be true, or at least based on a reasonable standpoint. And Robin goes on later on in this piece. I've just taken out a couple of bits, but she says, too many words, too little said. And that's what was being said about Radio 1 disc jockeys. She says, indeed. She says, in America, the days of prattle are over. You may or may not feel this is a good thing, but at least in America, there's no musicians' union dictating the needle time terms that radio stations run by. How many more years will the musicians' union call the tune? Enough, enough, says Robin Katz. Next time you hack your way through the media maze, how about explaining the musicians' union to the uninitiated, with affection from a fellow hack, Robin Katz. Well, Robin, I'll start off by explaining the situation to you. The musicians' union has got nothing to do with needle time. I mean, I do know this. I've lectured on Radio 1 to sort of staff training courses. The Musicians' Union, it deals with live music, and as long as we employ a certain number of live musicians at certain fees, they're happy, and the BBC always employs more musicians than it needs to, so the Musicians' Union has nothing to do with it. We do then have to negotiate with the PPL, record company people, Phonographic Performance Limited, and they will give us more needle time. They won't give it to us, they'd sell it to us. It's a very complicated situation, you know what I mean? But again, slaggers are fine. But get it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like finding you're in dock for burglary and they say, so, you think you're a master forger? No, I'm a burglar. So what this bag mark swag? You know? OK, so for once I've been having a go at the pop press, but I mean, I love them, of course, because I am the magnificent, as you know, so according to Melody Maker. But as I say, you know, get it right, have a go by all means, you know, but be negative if you want to, but be a bit positive if possible. You know, I like it. And just finally, a couple of reviews here in the Melody Maker from Ian Pye. And he's reviewing, one of the things he's reviewing is Jeffrey Daniel. He says, the first single since he left Shalimar and a complete disaster, lifted from the Andrew Lloyd Webber Richard Stilgoe musical, Starlight Express. This comes across as turgid, middle-aged trivia. In other words, exactly the kind of thing you'd expect from this pair of West End wallies, sort of Benny Hill electro-funk. I'm sure it's probably true, but you think, is he just whacking? Well, he whacks there because he thinks it's necessary. Turn over to the albums. Ian Pye again is saying of the new Laurie Anderson, which I haven't heard. I've had a copy in the office. I just haven't had time to put it on. He picks out a track particularly. I've got the album is sort of Japanese-sounding track, Kokoku. That's what it looks like to me, and it's on the, what is the album called? Mr. Heartbreak, Laurie Anderson's new album. But he picks it out and says, one of the most catalytic records I've ever heard. Mr. Heartbreak represents the fourth world, the unexplored tracks of mind and imagination, a warm and profoundly intimate guide through the continents of the living planet David Attenborough never mentions. And then he says, finally, the American dream is rediscovered. He may be wrong, he may be right, but I'm willing to have that sort of criticism and say, well, it made me want to hear it, so let's finish by hearing this particular Kokoku Laurie Anderson track.
Right.